Have you ever felt your heart race during a stressful situation, or experienced brain fog in the heat of a moment, or found yourself going along with something just to keep the peace? These reactions are tied to the body's survival mechanisms: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. They often originate from past traumatic experiences or ongoing stress. And though they may help us in acute situations, chronic activation can have long-term consequences on our physical and our mental health. So let's look at each of these responses and how they impact your body and your mind, and what you can do to restore balance again. Stress responses are hardwired into us as part of the autonomic nervous system. They're designed to help us survive threats. And these responses were really critical when our ancestors faced physical dangers in the wild. However, in modern life, our stressors are often more psychological rather than physical, like managing all the responsibilities of a home, or social conflicts, or financial concerns. Unfortunately, our bodies often can't tell the difference between the past response and the responses that we have today in our environment. So here's a breakdown of the 4 main stress responses. So number 1 is fight. This is an aggressive response to perceived dangers. It's often marked by anger, frustration, or the urge to confront the threat. Number 2 is flight. So this response pushes you to avoid or escape the threat, leading to behaviors such as running away or avoiding the conflict altogether. And then number 3 is freeze. When neither fight or flight seem viable, the body may become immobilized, and this can show up as indecision or disassociation or feeling stuck. And then the 4th form is fawn. This response involves people-pleasing or appeasing the threat, often sacrificing personal needs to avoid conflict or to gain approval. And while these responses are essential for survival in short bursts, they take a toll when activated repeatedly or chronically. So let's dive into the effects each one of these has on your health. So starting first with the fight response and the health implications from that. When you're in fight mode, the body gears up for a confrontation. Adrenaline and cortisol levels spike, causing your heart to race and your muscles to tense up. You're ready for action. The physical impacts of that, though, is going to be things like insomnia. It's really hard to fall asleep when your body is primed to fight. Muscle tension and headaches. Digestive issues. Blood flow is diverted away from digestion, potentially leading to conditions like irritable bowel syndrome. And then the mental health impacts include things like chronic anger and irritability. If you're always in fight mode, it can lead to burnout, anxiety, depression. You may find that you have difficulty in relationships. There's constant conflict or defensiveness that can alienate loved ones, creating isolation or loneliness when you're in that fight mode. The second one, the flight response, that's going to be more show up as avoidance patterns. So in flight mode, your body's focus is on escaping, whether physically or emotionally. While it may seem safer to avoid situations, constantly running from stress can lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms. Physical health impacts of the flight response are things like poor sleep again. Similar to the fight response, chronic activation of the flight response keeps your body ramped up, unable to relax to sleep because you're always prepared to run. Fatigue is another common symptom. It's a constant state of alertness can lead to adrenal fatigue and poor sleep, where your body is depleted from the never-ending need to run away. And the mental health impacts include things like anxiety. Avoidance can lead to social isolation, reinforcing that anxiety and making the stressor seem even larger and more critical to get away from it. Also, procrastination and perfectionism. Constant avoidance can create a cycle of procrastination, making it harder to accomplish tasks, and it ends up exacerbating the stress levels. And then let's talk about freeze. So the health impact of feeling stuck is what we want to address here with freeze. In that freeze mode, the body shuts down to avoid a threat. So this can happen when you feel powerless or overwhelmed by a situation. While freezing may feel protective, it can actually be very paralyzing. And the physical health impacts of that freeze mode include immobility-related issues. So being stuck, whether that's emotionally or physically, can contribute to muscle stiffness and to low energy and even to constipation. Another physical response to the freeze mode is suppressed immune function. So prolonged stress can weaken the immune system, making you more susceptible to illness. And the mental health impacts include disassociation. Chronic freezing can lead to emotional numbness, disconnection from reality, and difficulty engaging with the world. It can also lead to depression. The sense of helplessness, often associated with freezing, is a common feature in depression, actually, making it harder to break free from the cycle that you're in with the freeze and with the depression. And then the fourth response is the fawn response and the people-pleasing response. So fawning, or that tendency to appease others, to avoid conflict, may seem really harmless as a way to just maintain peace. However, neglecting your own needs can have a profound impact on both your physical and your mental health. Physical impact, let's start with that first, would include things like chronic stress. By constantly bending to others' needs, your body remains in a prolonged state of stress, leading to fatigue and to tension. And then also digestive issues. So similar to other stress responses, fawning can trigger digestive problems as the body's energy is diverted from rest and digest, breaking down, digesting food, and it's sent off to deal with the stress, mobilizing muscles or whatever it happens to be. And the mental health impact includes loss of self-identity. Fawning can erode your sense of self as you may prioritize others' desires over your own just to maintain the peace. No other reason, but you just want that peace at a high cost. Low self-esteem and resentment. Over time, the act of people-pleasing can foster resentment, frustration, and feelings of unworthiness. So let's talk about how to heal from chronic stress responses. Recognizing which stress response you default to is the first step toward breaking the cycle. Here are some practices that can help. Number one, begin to notice how your body feels throughout the day in different types of scenarios. Do you feel engaged? Or do you feel tense? Disconnected? This awareness can help you identify your stress triggers and the habitual responses to that. Number two, movement, especially aerobic exercises like running, walking, or swimming can help discharge that fight or that flight energy, bringing your nervous system back into balance again. Number three, for those who freeze or disassociate, practices like focusing on your breath or engaging with your physical senses can help bring you back into the present moment. So I recommend trying the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise. And here's what that is. So notice 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, with like different textures, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. Engage all of your senses to bring you into the present. All right, and number 4, if you tend to fawn, learning to set clear boundaries is really critical. Setting boundaries are not to force the other person to change, but to help protect you. Therefore, you don't set a boundary on them, but you set it on yourself. And number 5, it can be helpful to bring in the support of a professional therapist to help you process past traumas or chronic stress that is interfering with your current life. Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are natural responses to stress, but chronic activation can have a detrimental effect on your well-being. Understanding your patterns and taking proactive steps to manage stress will not only improve your mental and your physical health, but also help you to feel more balanced, more present, and empowered in your life. By tuning in to your body's cues and cultivating healthier coping mechanisms, you can transform these instinctual responses into conscious, empowered choices.